everybody, and welcome to today's episode of This Organized Life. We are wrapping up 2021. Oh, I'm your host, Laurie Palau. I'm so excited to jump into this. In case you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. Thank you for being here. I cannot believe that we are finally at the end of another year. And for our last two episodes of the year, I always like to do a recap episode of the top episodes from you guys out there, as well as my favorite episodes that we've had. And it's fun because I get to kind of stroll down memory lane. And so joining me today as my co-host sidekick is my producer, Don Jackson. And so Don is going to be here. However, for those of you who are watching on video, Don likes to stay incognito. So we're just going to have his mysterious voice joining me. But Don, welcome to the show.
I don't know if it's mysterious, but
oh, it's mysterious.
I think the logo, just like the NBA logo, speaks for itself. So the Raven Media Group logo can speak to my face. How about
that? Well, I love having Don as a sidekick, and he likes to stay behind the scenes. But I figured for these last two episodes, since he listens to my podcast more than anybody, as somebody who edits them and listens in pre and post and all of the things that I don't do, because fun fact, as soon as I turn off the camera for recording, the magic all happens in his world, not in mine. So all of this, as well as you can make me sound, it's all because of Don. So thank you.
It was very nice of you to say, but it's really not that hard. It's funny. It's when you edit a podcast, you essentially listen to it. So for every half hour, the golden rule is for every half hour of editing of a podcast, you add an hour to it. So this one's about an hour long. So usually with that kind of thing, you listen to about two to three times. So yeah. And if you count this, yeah.
I mean, listening to me for 3 hours a week, I think the only people that maybe have had to do that are my children. And if that. So my
and the big guy,
he doesn't really listen. I mean,
I think some females would probably say I'm a man, so I probably don't listen either. So
I'm just, I think he selectively listens. But, for those of you who are new, we're talking about Joshua Palau, the sidekick, who, if you want to hear, was on our holiday episode, but that might be in one of our recaps. So the way we're going to work this is, so for the first episode of our two-parter, we're going to talk about our listeners' favorite episodes, which would be our top 10 episodes of 2021. And we were judged based on downloads, listens, streams, what have you. And so those are made up of which ones you guys like the best, however many people listened. And so it was interesting for me to look at them. I was actually surprised by some of them, pleasantly surprised over which ones were favorites. So I'm curious to know your thoughts, because I don't know if you've done like a deep dive into this, Don, or is this going to be new information for you?
Well, I was pleasantly surprised as well, but the one thing I was actually really surprised about was, from what I can tell from our list, there's no Enneagram in on there.
Because the Enneagram ones were all in 2020. We didn't do any specific Enneagram episodes in 2021. So we talked about the Enneagram within the episodes, but all my Enneagram series was 2020, and they were in the top.
Yeah, I think you know what it says to me. Mm-hmm. That the pandemic has gone on so long that it feels like
it was just one big year. It was just 2 years. They were just all in together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's
Yes.
that.
Yeah. There's that. So nope. Nope. Um, but on that note, I will say they were some of our most popular episodes of all time, but we're not doing of all time. We're doing just this calendar year. And so here we go.
Can you tell listeners why we wouldn't do it for all time? Because there's how many,
Oh my gosh.
a billion episodes?
There's a billion episodes. And a lot of times people go back. So I don't know what you do with your podcasts, but a lot of times if I pick up a podcast midway through, like I haven't listened to it from the beginning, I will then go back if I like the podcast host or I like the show. I'll then go back and listen to one of the early episodes, which I've never gone back and listened to my first episode. I think I might need a bottle of wine and do it one day just for fun. Because I can't imagine how bad it must sound. Not from a sound quality. I always had great producers, so I'm not from that, but just from a content and confidence and I didn't know what I was doing. So I had no clue. So I can't imagine. So I don't know how in all time that those early episodes measure up, but I think that they're pretty high on the downloads as well.
Here's, I think, a brilliant idea for your YouTube channel is you go back with a glass of wine and do a reaction video of your first episode.
Oh my gosh. Like on Bravo when they have those couch people where they like judge the shows. That would be funny. Maybe I think I need a panel of people. I don't think it should be me. Because you're your own worst critic. So I mean,
So
I've become immune to listening to my voice. Like like I'm over it. People are like, how do you listen to yourself? I'm like, I
maybe
like
get the family
disassociate.
panel. What do you think about that?
I would have to bribe them big time. They don't listen to my show as it is. But the good news is the early episodes, well, in this case, the good news would be the early episodes were only 20 minutes long. Because when I first started the show, I did they were short 20-minute episodes. And the reason behind that was I wanted them to be something that you can listen to in the car. And this was, again, before the days of COVID when people commuted all the time and people were driving their kids to school or daycare or soccer practice or wherever. And I found that 20 minutes was the good sweet spot. That's where I would be in a car. So I wanted somebody to be able to listen to my show in entirety from start to finish. So I would say it was probably the first year of my show, they were 20-minute episodes and I liked them, but I got a lot of feedback from listeners saying they wish the show was longer. And that is why we started making the show longer. So that's a true fun fact.
Yeah, we're coming up on our 3-year anniversary, I think.
Oh my God, are we? Have we been together for 3 years?
Just about in February, I think it'll be 3 years.
Wow. Yeah, and I'm going to be starting in it'll be my 6th year of this organized life come January, which is crazy town.
Yeah.
That I still have something to say after 6 years. I don't know what that sounds like, but what that means.
I think I speak for a lot of people that know you, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's ever going to be a lack of that ever.
I don't really know if that's a compliment or maybe it's one of those backhanded compliments.
No,
I just think it means that there's a lot of topics relating to organization in life that we can unpack.
Yeah, let's go with that. No, I think I think it speaks to your Enneagramness. How about that?
My Enneagramness. You don't even know what the Enneagram is. And do you even know what the Enneagram is?
I do, especially because we've gone over it quite a bit. Apparently this whole year, but it's not been this year. It was last year.
It just feels like it is.
Yeah. So
wait, what do you know your Enneagram? Yes, you do. You do.
I don't. No,
you lie.
No, I'm an enigma wrapped in a riddle. I don't know.
Okay.
We could do a whole episode of unwrapping my Enneagram numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's numbers. I don't think it's one.
You think you're multiple?
Yeah,
You're multiple Enneagram types.
I think so.
Okay.
I might have broken the Enneagram. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
This is probably why we don't have me on here, because I just
I
take us
know.
on tangents.
I know exactly. I was like, okay, so we should probably get into it for our listeners who are like, all right, get on with this. We usually don't do this long of an intro. So, okay. Our most popular, do you want to insert a drum roll here? So, most popular episode of all of 2021 was episode 249, which was our fall organizing checklist, which I found interesting. And just FYI, we always in our show notes, we always have links to things that we talk about in the episode. So if you want to go back and listen to any of these episodes, if a topic strikes you, or you say, hey, other people liked it and I want to have a little bit of FOMO, you can easily go back and into our show notes and just click on it and listen to the episode. Or you can go and watch it on YouTube if you prefer. But yeah, our fall organizing checklist. And I think if I had to suspect why people liked it, it was because fall's a great time where people kind of do a reset. I think there's a couple times a year where people do resets. New Year's, of course, New Year's resolutions, all the things, but also in the fall, because that's a reset of routines. And we just had a lot of actionable tips. And I think people like checklists. And so they see that and are like, oh yeah, I want to be able to check things off. So that was a popular episode.
So our listeners are a lot like you, and they like lists.
They do like lists. Yeah. And so I think we're going to play a little clip from each of these. Is that correct? We're going to play a little clip from each of these episodes. So here's a little snippet from our fall organizing checklist. To really get back into more of a structured routine, which is something that a lot of us have not had in like a year and a half. And so it's a matter of rebuilding those muscles and figuring out, okay, what am I going to be doing? How am I going to be doing it? What is the best way to tackle it? What should I tackle first? Like all of these questions that you might be asking yourself. So I came up with a list of 10 different things. I have the list right here. I'm here for those of you who are watching on YouTube, of things that and most of them are regardless of where you live. A couple of them are a little bit more seasonal specific if you, if you live somewhere like myself in the Northeast. But these are great tips for people regardless of where you are. So if you are thinking now is the time for me to start getting my act together, getting more organized, reducing the clutter, you're going to want to lean into this. All right. Number 2, episode 246, which was digital clutter hacks with Kath Younger, my friend Kath. I love that this was one of your top favorite episodes, because this was a great conversation. First of all, digital is a huge, huge clutter roadblock for a lot of people. And whenever we talk about it, whenever I do a digital clutter clinic, whenever we talk about digital clutter, lots of popularity. And so it's no surprise to me that this made the top 10 list at all. Do you remember this episode at all?
Yeah, I thought it was a fun episode. I think it relates to anybody who has a pulse now. I mean, digital's everywhere, so it's. I do have some clients though that do like to make paper lists of outlines for the show, so that's still a thing. But in general, clutter of your digital stuff, I know for me, it's huge.
Yeah. And I think, again, like anything, it's a spectrum. Digital could mean digital photos. It could mean email. It could mean documents. There's so many different types, and each one of those has its own, each one of those is its own episode. But Kath I loved having her on. First of all, she is just a fun person. She was a food blogger first. And as somebody that just was naturally really interested in kind of streamlining her digital stuff, started doing it for friends, and then found that it was something that she could turn into a business. So now she helps, she's an online course and some consulting, helping people streamline their digital clutter. And I actually, I learned a lot from that episode, and I've put some stuff into practice, specifically when she was talking about not using your inbox as a filing cabinet. And a lot of times people will hold on to things in their inbox as a reference point for later, hence the filing cabinet. And she was talking about using the archive feature, specifically if you're using Mac or Gmail, using the archive feature. But it was she had some really, really great nuggets of advice on streamlining or taming your digital clutter. And we have pulled a few snippets. So I think we can insert that now.
So as a blogger and an entrepreneur, I feel like I have more than the average person in terms of emails, photos, calendars that I'm juggling. I mean, not to say that I'm busier than anyone who works full time, but just in terms of like the blog flow, I have taken, like I said, I had 20,000 photos on my camera roll the last time I upgraded my phone. And so I take a ton of photos and I get tons and tons of emails per day, like pitches, press releases, all that kind of stuff. So over the years, I have developed 2 systems around photos and email specifically, as well as my calendar, that it was almost like out of necessity that I've like honed these systems over time, and they work really well. And I knew I wanted to create content and then eventually a course that would help people in the organizing space. But I knew that like closet and physical stuff clutter courses and stuff already existed. And I was asking myself, they say, what do you help your friend? What do your friends and family come to you for? And I always joke with the people I know in real life. I'm like, welcome to Kath's digital technology consulting company. Like I'll say, I'm sending your invoice tomorrow. And people would come to me with like technical questions, like how can I get rid of the 20,000 emails in my inbox? How can I set up my iPhone this way? How can I automate this problem that I'm having? And I said, okay, I feel like there's this connection between being like sort of tech savvy and then being really good at organizing, that I can bring those two together. And I feel like digital organization is something that everybody needs help with.
All right. Number 3. It is the following episode, which was episode 247, the productivity planner with Sarah Dalton. Okay. I adore Sarah. She's great. And she has helped so many people in my world more than just this episode. So I had her on the show to talk about, because again, productivity, people want to talk about not just being busy, about being productive. And she helps people. She's got, again, a digital framework. She's got all of these great downloads on her website. So definitely click on the link in the show notes to go to her, check out her stuff. I mean, I say that for all of the different episodes, but she has some great stuff. But I went back and did a deep dive, because one of the things that we talked about on the show was about aligning your core values. And this is something that I took with me to our retreat in Austin. And I did this huge breakout session with all my professional organizers on identifying your core values and how that plays out in the things that you do from an organizational standpoint. And it was such an eye-opening exercise that I loved it. And I highly, highly recommend that you guys go and check this out. It's so important, because so many times we beat ourselves up for the things that we're not doing. And when you figure out, or we should be doing this, or I wish I was doing that. And the way that she helps you break this down step by step is so granular that it really allows you to focus in on what's important and why it's important to you. I loved it, loved it, loved it. No, we have a little bit of a snippet from our episode with her, but I loved that conversation.
Be the most important things in our lives, like at the top tier level. What are our priorities? What are we going to design our life around? And it's kind of that perspective through which we see the world, right? And then, so what I like to say is it's my foundation, like what I built it on. And then also it's the filter. It's my filter as I'm making decisions, as I'm planning out my week, planning out my month. I'm filtering it through my core values. And I know that that can sound great, you know, like, okay. But I have like so many strategies too, to like how to practically put that into place. So I think for me, if I'll just sort of run you through the process.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay. So, and I have a link too. I think I gave that to you, like a freebie that they can, because that worksheets, I mean, I'm all about writing things down and working it out, getting it out of your head. So first, naming, and that's the big naming what your top 5 core values are. And again, the number, I'm big on finding what works for you. So taking people's frameworks, taking people's advice and playing around with it. So if 3 feels better for you, if 7, right? Like the number is basically irrelevant, but something you want to be able to, like, not too many, right? You want to be able to remember, you want to keep it simple, because that's what I'm all about too. So for me, it's top 5 core values. For my core values are, so naming them: faith, family, freedom, health, integrity. Those are my top 5 core values. And so basically there's so many different, like, you can Google it and there's massive amounts of words, like lists, you know, upon lists of just words or phrases of core values, of examples.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, do you offer up prompts to people? Because people be like, I don't know. Right. Yes. Where do you start? Yeah.
And that's in that.
All right, Don, do you have the list in front of you, or for the next one? You do?
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you read number 5?
Okay. The Clutter Clinic?
Yeah.
All right. So the next one is going to be episode 239, and that's going to be a fun little, I don't know, what would you call it? A block of episodes we did for the Clutter Clinic.
It was a series. We did a little series.
Mm-hmm. And it was really popular. And so this is, and I think there's a couple more on here from the Clutter Clinic series that we had. But for this one, it's 239, and it's talking all about closets. I have a very small closet, so, you know, I'm a guy, so there's not a lot in my closet. There's a lot of sweatshirts, a lot of shorts, a lot of shirts. A lot of it has the logo of my company.
I'm still waiting for my Raven Media sweatshirt.
My face is on only a small part of it. The t-shirts have a big blown up version of my face. So there's that. No, this was a fun episode.
I was going to say really something that was like, but we're a family show. So I was not, I'm going to just not say a thing.
We do have a lot of fun behind the scenes. So there's that. I think that joke will probably be running behind the scenes, but, but this episode was really fun. You know, we talked a lot about, you know, how to organize your closets, how to organize things. And I thought it was great for the listeners, and it shows because it made the top downloaded list. So I think, you know, it was fun for me to sit and listen, and I learned a little bit. I actually took a little note taking because I have a 10-year-old that seems to always have toys or something in his closet that needs organizing. So it was helpful for me. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I loved Clutter Clinic. I love the whole Clutter Clinic series. And real quick, again, if you're new, the Clutter Clinic was a speaker series that I created in 2013, where I would go when people were doing live events, like nobody's like never gave it a second thought. It was small, intimate like lunch and learns or small groups. Sometimes I would do them in corporate, but they were like usually like anywhere between 20 to 40 people. And we would come and talk all about strategies for specific areas in the house. And so we worked through them and I created this series. So we would have Clutter Clinic closets, kitchens, garages, paper. We had a digital one, all the things. And it was great because we were able to brainstorm and share ideas and really give people actionable advice. And so I have since then turned it into a speaker series that I had teach other professional organizers so that there's clutter clinics all the time. And then when the pandemic hit, we started doing virtual clutter clinics. So it was great. And so I said, you know what, let's do a whole podcast series on the clutter clinic for our listeners, because why not? And so I was pleasantly surprised to see that many of them made the top 10. And what I like about the closet episode is it, you know, a lot of times people just think of master closets, but there's so many other closets. So it's hall closets, it's linen closets, it could be all the different things. And so talking about the, you know, why do we even want to have it organized? Like, what is the point? And how is this stressing us out? And how can we make it more, you know, impactful for whatever our purposes are? You know, you could have a closet for all your podcast equipment, you know, it's going to look very different than the stuff for your many sweatshirts and t-shirts and things. So, yeah, we really kind of unpack it and walk through some practical, tactical steps. And, you know, I just love talking all about that kind of stuff. So apparently you guys like listening. So I guess we could just play a little snippet from that as well. All right. So anybody that's been around me for more than 5 seconds knows that my first go-to whenever I tell anybody or anybody comes to me and asks, how do I start to get organized? How do I start this process? The first thing is obviously you're going to pick the space that you want to start with, usually the space that's giving you kind of like the biggest pain point. But I always tell people, if you're not really sure, start small. And a closet, depending on the size of your closet, could be a great space to start. Hall closets, linen closets, even pantries, which I would consider, you know, for some a closet. They're great if they're not too large because it gives you a manageable space to start with. The other thing about those particular closets that I just named, by and large, there isn't a lot of emotional clutter that comes with them. And when you start getting into your kids' clothes or your clothes, believe it or not, there's a lot of emotion that is tied to that for many people. And so I say practice building your muscle with something that is not going to really cause you any additional decision fatigue. All right, our next one. We just did this one a couple months ago and I loved it. It was episode 253. And it was with my friend, other colleague, Shira Gill. And she was on our show. It was called Minimalista with Shira Gill. And she was on our show talking all about her new book. If you are in the organizing, if you like to follow other professional organizers, Shira is top in our field and she's in California. I want to say the San Francisco Bay Area, but she's been doing this for a while, like myself. But what I loved about this episode is, even though we were there to talk about her book and her aesthetic and all of the things, we did like a little mini therapy session. I don't think she was prepared for that. And we unpacked a little bit about what her life was like growing up and how her childhood really played into what she does now for a living. And so I loved that real human side of her, because I think we look at other people that are in a particular space and expert in their field, and we think that they've always had it all together or that they don't struggle with certain things. And it was a really honest and real conversation between the two of us. And I loved it. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, real quick. If you want, I can introduce the clip too.
Oh yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
That's fine.
I'll just
Okay.
talk for a couple sentences.
Yeah,
and
go
I'll
ahead.
introduce it. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, I liked the episode. It was a lot of fun. It was neat to see you put on your therapist hat, which I think sometimes you like to do, which is
Sometimes, all the
speaks to
time.
your Enneagram number. I think it's what 52. I'm not sure what it is. No, it was a fun episode, and I think our listeners got a lot out of it. Of course they did, because it made the list. So it was neat to see that whole conversation play out. And I think what I like about it is the listeners were able to see it. If you go to YouTube, please go to YouTube, check it out, like and subscribe to that channel, as the kids in the lingo is nowadays. But it was good to see that kind of interaction between the two of you, and I had a lot of fun listening to it. So I was a listener as well, as I am every week. But here's a clip from that episode. Enjoy.
Because most of my clients are, not all, but most were busy working parents, primarily busy working moms who, had tried all of the things and felt like they just didn't have the time and they didn't have the bandwidth, and it all felt paralyzing and impossible. And so the biggest thing that I heard when I would organize people in their homes one-on-one is people would say, I cannot believe how much easier this was than I thought, and how fast it was. In my head, this was such a mountain, and it's stunning what you can do with focus and kind of doing just small projects instead of trying to bang out an entire house. And so the way I design my book, it's two parts. The first part breaks down my 5-step foundation, which maybe we'll get into. But the second part is just a room by room guide to these quick, tiny tips, tricks, and hacks that you can do literally if you have 15 minutes to spare.
All right, Don, we are in the back 9, or in this case, the back 5, for our top most popular episodes of 2021. So the next one is episode 245, which was Health Over Clutter with Noel Elie. And Noel, she was on the show. She's an actress, and she also has her own production company. And she was on, it was so interesting. She was talking about how she had to get rid of all of her things as a result of mold toxicity that impacted her during a move, and how that whole like health scare that she went through, and she walked us through this whole thing, the process that she went through of having to get rid of all of her things, and how her illness played into how she looks at stuff and how she spends her time. It was a fascinating conversation. Do you remember that one?
I do remember that one. It was, I think it's, if the listeners who've been with us for a long time will notice that a lot of the people you have on have like yourself, multiple hats. This woman started, I don't know, 4 or 5 companies. And then to top it off, she had that mold. And then I believe around the same time her mom had,
Yes.
she had lost her mom. And that whole thing was just it was an interesting listen. I don't want to say story because but I thought it was a really interesting listen that whole entire time. And I really enjoyed the episode. And as we can tell by it making the list, that our listeners really enjoyed the episode. And so I guess we should play a clip from that episode, huh?
I think we should.
What to do. And for me, I've always taken tiny steps of right action, and essentially it's very cliche, but like jump and the net will appear. Mm-hmm. And so for me, what that is doing things that light me up. So anything that brings me joy and excites me. And so for anybody out there listening, if you're feeling like, well, I don't know what to do, right? Like, I don't know what creative outlet I have, or whether it's volunteering or working another job or whatever it is, I always say, make a list of the things you love and the things that bring you joy. And then also make a list of what are the common denominators of what people ask you. Like what do they come to you for advice for?
That's
And then
so
from
good.
there,
That's
right?
so good. So
And you'll
good.
see this theme, and then all of a sudden you can craft that into a little side business if you want.
All right, Don, you want to read the next one?
Yes.
You're
I'm
back on
noticing-
it. I'm
yeah.
noticing.
I'm noticing a trend that
You want to read the next two? You can read the next two.
I'm getting the Clutter Clinic episodes, it looks like. So before though we go into the Clutter Clinic, this next episode of a Clutter Clinic, which by the way is episode 41, Clutter Clinic and Kitchens.
241. Did you say 41?
I did say 41. It's 241. This is probably why I shouldn't be introducing
I'm like
anything.
41. Oh my gosh.
I still think that the Enneagram was this year, so there's that. But I think before we go any further with that, I think you have something in conjunction with the Clutter Clinic that you have created, right?
Well, again, the Clutter Clinic, I saw it becoming really, really popular, and I saw the success that I had in my business, and also that people loved learning about it in that in person or that group setting. And so when I started the partner program, for all that you know, that I have professional organizers that I are in my group that I mentor and my community, I wanted them to be able to share the same successes with their people in their community. And so I developed a Clutter Clinic course framework for professional organizers. So that is something, and we have the main Clutter Clinic Classic, and then we've got a couple of the other satellite Clutter Clinics, if you will. So if you're a professional organizer, check it out.
And I guess we'll go ahead and play the clip for episode 241 of the Clutter Clinic and Kitchens. Well, now that we're back from that break and I'm taking over.
That you want to think about is, do I have a poor layout? Am I not, again, we touched on this earlier, am I not having it make sense for me? You know, do I have my utensils clear across the room, so I have to have like a secondary canister on my cooktop, you know, or on my counter? So think about the layout. Does the layout make sense? Do I have the stuff in the area that I need? The third thing is, do I have the right products? Sometimes with a kitchen, believe it or not, getting some simple drawer organizers or a pull-out, inexpensive like cabinet pull-out for like those back cabinets that like stuff gets lost in the back can make a huge difference. Or maybe you've got all kinds of like spices that are shoved in somewhere, and if you put them in a Lazy Susan, that you can easily access them. So sometimes just some inexpensive products can really, really make a difference, both from an aesthetic to just make it look nicer, but also from an accessibility. How quickly can I go to retrieve it? So I think product can really make a big difference in your kitchen. And the amount you're going to spend on products is going to determine on how big your space is, what you need, what you want. It doesn't have to cost a fortune, but I've done kitchens where I've spent, you know, $1,000 on products, but it doesn't have to. I think, again, you want to look at your habits, your needs. Are you somebody that wants that Pinterest perfect kitchen where everything is decanted and labeled? Or are you okay having all your cereals in a box as long as they're corralled in one general area?
This podcast with my Clutter Clinic love.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and introduce the next. This is number 8. And we're realizing why I'm not part of this podcast on a regular basis. I'm behind the scenes.
Well, you are part of it. You're just better on the back end.
Yes, I'm better on the back end. So this is going to be episode 242, and it's Clutter Clinic and Paper Control, which I didn't know that's what you wanted to call it, because I just have paper clutter everywhere, which is mostly with mail. I think I suffer from what a lot of people suffer from, where you get a whole bunch of junk mail, and instead of going through it when you walk in the door, you set it by, I have a little table that has our keys and everything, and it seems to be a collection of
Can we unpack that?
mailers.
Can we unpack that for a second before we
Sure.
go to the clip? Seriously, I want to use this. So that's a very common pitfall for a lot of people, is just getting that, and that, call it the procrastination. A lot of people, it's indecision. When I talk about paper clutter, and I think we talk about this, it'll be in the clip that we pulled, really talking about how paper clutter stems from emotional clutter. It's like they're very connected. People don't realize it. But a lot of times people don't want to have to make decisions, and going through the mail, even if it's something pretty simplistic and benign, requires a decision. And so I guess I'm curious, why, when you come in the door, as opposed to just going through it, why do you just set it down?
To be honest, it's laziness, because when I walk into the house and I get the mail, I actually have to walk through past the big recycling bin we have outside. So instead of just standing there with the lid open, going through it and just tossing it in there, I bring it inside. And, that's the thing. We're talking about 2 extra steps, but I think for like almost everybody, I'm like, oh, well, I'll just bring it inside, and you set it down. And as innocent as it sounds, you're going, well, it's only 2 pieces. Well, then the next day there's another 2 pieces, and the next day, and then by the time you realize the end of the month, it's this stack of stuff, and you're like, what the hell is this? And I think it's just a matter of laziness.
Do you find that, like, important stuff, because I'm sure most of your bills are probably automated, so there might not be as much of an impact as there was 10, 20 years ago, when people were constantly getting late fees because things would get literally lost in the shuffle. But do you find that stuff falls through the cracks, in addition to the fact that you're having that physical clutter as a result of just leaving the pile? Do you find that it's anxiety producing, or that there are other ripple effects from doing that?
No, I think for me, essentially it's just junk mail and some of my mom's mail that gets thrown in there. But my mom lives with me sometimes, so
She gets
depending
mail.
on, so she gets mail here. So that's usually what's in that pile. And like I said, it's just a matter of, and I think it's an unconscious walk, as you're walking by, like I said, I could just take 2 extra steps and it's right there. But usually at the end of the month, I'll go through there, and it's like adverts, like you get from Jiffy Lube, or
You leave it for a month?
Yeah, for a month.
Don,
I know, I'm horrible.
What kind of example are you setting for these boys?
Horrible examples. I mean,
seriously.
Yeah. That's probably the biggest thing that for me is that, and it's a pretty good size. I don't know what you call those little tables by the door. I don't know, what do you call those?
Yeah, an entryway table.
Yeah. So it's one of
table.
Those.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a bowl there that has my wallet and keys. So Esther's keys goes there, and that's my partner. It's her keys are in there, my wallet and my keys, and masks. Masks are like, they're everywhere. I think we could do an episode on masks.
We could do
everywhere.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe
in
we
your
should.
Car, they're everywhere.
Yeah. It's like worse than, I feel like, especially the disposable ones. And I know we're talking about paper control, so I don't want to digress too much, but I feel like it's like picking up dirty tissues whenever I grab masks everywhere. I mean, I don't really have them all over my house because I don't have littles. But when I'm at clients and I'm like, there's masks everywhere, I'm like, oh my gosh. It's a big thing. Mask storage. Yeah.
Real quick story. I know I want to actually just say this little quick story, because you were talking about the tissues and the masks.
Yeah.
I taught my boys, because I'm trying to teach my boys how to do things for themselves, so little odd jobs around the house. So we had a toilet that the flapper was bad. So I replaced everything inside. So they helped me with it. And we were putting the inside the toilet tank, putting everything together. And they were getting grossed out by touching the stuff inside the toilet tank, because they thought it's the same water. They call it toilet water in the bowl that's in the tank. I'm like, no, it doesn't recycle. They thought
they were sticking their hand in their own pee. is what
Yeah.
they
And I'm
did.
like, that's what they were thinking. I'm like, no, it's just regular water. It's not anything. It comes out of the tap. It's just right here. It's not. So the funny thing is they had that same reaction that you had about the mass being, like a piece of tissue, and you just
Mhm.
like barely touch it and pick it and throw it away.
Yeah, Mike.
They were doing that with the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, I was like, and
That's
no matter
funny.
how many times I told them it was just regular
They were
water.
conditioned, right? That it's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, you're sticking your
Yeah.
hand in the toilet bowl. That's
Yeah.
funny.
So there's that.
That is funny. But yeah, so again, people, I think the point is not for me to shame Don on his choice to procrastinate when it comes to paper clutter, but to realize, first of all, that these are the little things that really do, if you are living with other people, this is leading by example. These are very, very easy, simple strategies that you can start to make little changes that will impact clutter from a bigger perspective in your home. So I'm a big one. I don't like paper clutter at all. And I as much as we can say that we're paper, people are moving towards paperless, this paperless, that, there's still paper, there's still mail, there's still stuff that comes home from your kid's school, even though things are electronic. And how are you going to navigate that? So I think it was a really helpful episode. So I think everyone should listen to that one.
And they're going to, because here's the clip.
All righty then. All right. And in my kitchen command center, I have 2 upright files, and I'll post a picture in our Facebook group. The first one is where my action file goes. So that's where all my bills go. Or like I said, if I have something to RSVP to, that's where that goes. The one behind it is the reference. So I know when that gets filled, that's when I go, and that's my cue to go up and file. Once I can't fit any more in there, that's when I go up there. So that's how I use my cues. Okay. You can use your cue however it works for you. If you're the person that says, I'm going to do this every Monday, then do it every Monday. If you are able to space it out, file once a month, whatever it is, as long as you're staying on top of it, that's all that matters. As long as you're not delinquent in your bills, you're not missing deadlines, all of those things, as long as you're keeping current, the routine can be completely customized to you. All right. Our final 2 episodes of your favorites. All right. I'll take this one. So it is episode 248, which was Take Back Your Time with Christy Wright. So I had fun doing this episode because I'm a huge Ramsey Personalities fan, and Christy Wright, some of you might know, she's one of the Ramsey personalities, and she talks all about, she helps women in business similarly to I do, but similarly, if I could speak, to what I do. She helps people. She has a business boutique, but she also talks about, it's like work-life balance and all the things, on a bigger scale than I do. But she has a new book, or it's probably not so new now. It's a couple months old, but her new book, Take Back Your Time, Guilt-Free Guide to Life Balance, came out, and had her on the show. And we were talking all about, it's not about doing everything, how looking at balance isn't about equal parts. It's about, as she says, doing the right things at the right time. And so I don't think we can hear this enough. And I know men struggle with this too. So I don't want to just pick on women, but I think the most common thing I hear from people is, I just don't have enough time, or I can't get this done, or looking at what somebody else is doing and comparing yourself to measure up. And so we unpacked all of that in this clip.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good episode. And the one thing it resonated for me, because I say this all the time to my boys, is I can make more money, but I can't make more time.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, like for me, and especially in business, and just the life in general, I don't mind if I lose money on stuff, but it's when you lose time, because that you can never make that back up. There's no going back and fixing that. And so I think with this, it's really practical because it allows you to, and I think it was great because she gave you the space to say, it's okay to say, I need to get this back. And this is how I do that. And so I thought it was a great episode for that. And for me, it was really, really refreshing to hear that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, we just tell ourselves these false narratives that we have to do all these things and we have to, be, superhuman. And again, it's not realistic. It's not sustainable. And again, as parents, we want to be setting these examples for our kids of healthy boundaries. And, it's not about not working hard, but it's about working smart and prioritizing the things that are really important to you in that season of your life. And, that season might be work. It might be your kids are always your priority, but you know what I mean? Like it might be on them, or you might have a project that, you're working on. But I think it was really, I love how she mapped it out. And the book is a great, simple read. So definitely, if you need a last minute stocking stuffer, you can check out her book.
And so the very thesis of the book, the summary in one sentence, is life balance isn't doing everything for an equal amount of time. It's about doing the right things at the right time. And when you do the right things at the right time, you will actually feel that balance that you've been looking for all along. And so it gives you permission to shake the guilt because you're doing what's right for you. And that's the great news. You get to decide what's right. I'm not going to tell you, and I don't tell you in the book, hey, here's what you should be doing. I say, here's some questions to help you figure that out for yourself. And so I actually give, when I walk through like some questions to ask yourself, better questions to ask yourself before you say yes to something, for example. Some of them are very tactical, like, how will this affect my family? Because sometimes we can forget that if I say yes to working out at 5 a.m., well, there's a domino effect of how that affects my husband. If the kids start crying at 5 a.m., we're not both there to tag team. And so I'm gone. So you need to or will I want to do it then? I may want to do it now. Yes. My default answer to everything all the time is yes. Yes, that sounds fun. Yes, I'll be there. Yes, awesome. Yes, 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 yes. But will I want to do it then when that actually happens in February or Sunday night or whatever the time is? So I give you some very practical, tactical questions to ask yourself before you say yes. But here's the best question you can ask yourself. And I'll just, since we have a short amount of time, I kind of want to give them a simple takeaway.
Please.
For everyone listening right now, if you were just going to ask yourself one question that is going to help you feel more balanced, one question to know what to do, one question to help you sort out the guilt and make better decisions. This is the question. What's right now?
All right, Don, I'm going to give you the floor for our final episode of the top 10, the listeners' top 10 episodes of
I don't
2021.
I don't know if I can do this because it's not a Clutter Clinic episode.
I know.
but,
I'm giving you the floor, even though it's not a Clutter Clinic.
I will take this, and this is going to be episode 252, and it's the cost of getting organized. And I loved it because I think everybody has that, when you think of organizing, at least this is for me, and I think I speak for a lot of our listeners, is you have to have these things, you have to go to, the Container Store to get all these things to help you be more organized, or to help you, or to get like an app or something like that. And I think it's great because it allows you to know that you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars to get organized. Sometimes it's, let's go back to my, the example of me and my mail. It's just a matter of taking those 2 steps to do it right then. And something small, which I think everybody will agree with, that something as small as that, just placing your mail on top of there, it's those small things that turn into mountains of things before you even realize it's happening. And then you're like for me, a month goes by and it's like this pile of stuff, papers on that little thing there. So I think that's what's great about this episode, is allows you to kind of break down and, kind of figure out how to do things without having to break the bank to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love about it also, and I talk a lot about this in my book. So here we'll talk about plug, hot mess, practical guide to getting organized. That's a great stocking stuffer too. But it's more about the behavior than it is about the stuff. And there's this preconceived notion of, if I could just have the bin, the basket, the organizer, or I could just hire a professional organizer, all of my problems would be solved. And I used to make this analogy all the time when I would be speaking. And I would say, if you want to become a runner, you can buy the best shoes on the market. But if you don't put them on and you don't go out there and run every day, what good are they? They're not doing you any good on the shelf. And so, yes, it can make your run more enjoyable, but it's not the shoes. It's about you doing it. And so really the cost of getting organized can be looked at in several different ways. It's how much is it costing you in your time? How much is it costing you in wasted time of looking for things that you have? Is it costing you relationships because you are anxious or stressed or overwhelmed, so you're snapping at your kids or your spouse or whatever? Or logistically, like if you're at work and you are losing time because you're not working smart, because you're not organized, is that costing you actual money? So I think there's several different ways that you can look at it. But at the end of the day, so much of what we talk about here is really about changing that behavior. So like you said, when you first introduced the episode, it's not so much about the thing. It's about how you're handling the stuff in the first place. I want, like, inviting to you. And in addition to the aesthetic that we'll see of, what style is your type, whether it's farmhouse or modern or industrial or boho chic or whatever, what you'll see is a lot of times what people are attracted to is the white space, and they don't realize it. They look at a closet or an image of a closet and they say, this seems so great. But what they really see is the fact that there's all this space in between. They don't see tons of clothes, like 100 things shoved into a tiny rod. They see, a dozen shirts that are spaced out nicely. They see 4 pairs of shoes, not 40 pairs of shoes. And so it's the illusion of organization based on the fact that there is less stuff. Now, I'm not here to convince you to be a minimalist. I'm not here to convince you to deny you of going shopping or, having options or any of those things. Certainly, I think there's an epidemic with people having too much stuff and feeling like choices are going to make them happier, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. So what I say is everything is a choice. If you want to choose your stuff, that's totally fine. But the consequence for choosing to hold on to all of your things might be that you are going to have a cluttered space. Now, yes, are there systems and strategies that you could put into place, adding shelving or cubbies or drawers or additional hanging rod? Of course there are. We could, there's always ways that you can try to maximize your space. But at some point, there's only so much a space can hold. And so the decision really lies in your court. And this is what I say to all my clients is, what is more important to you? Is it that feeling? Is it that white space, that ability to breathe and have that sense of calm? Or do you find comfort in your stuff?
Well, that was another great episode that we had. And I think Jeter just said hello.
I was like, and Jeter's just, I don't know what's going on with this dog, people. I'm sorry. He's getting old and he's getting crotchety. So I have my melatonin. He did not go on a walk this morning. I have been recording all day. I had to record somebody else's show before this, and I went on a quick walk, but I didn't have time to, maybe that's what it is. Maybe he needs to go out. But anyway, I'm really excited for this list. And I love listening and hearing from what episodes really resonated with our people. And so I think we had a nice, diverse group, and I'm glad to know that here we are 5 years in. You guys are still tuning in week after week. I love it. So we're going to be back next week, and we are going to have part 2 of this series, this best of. And this time we're going to talk about my personal top 10 favorites. And Don, you can weigh in. Maybe we'll do a little split if you have your own personal favorites, if you want to weigh in on yours, but I don't want to add more work to you.
I have way too many favorites for me, but I think it would be interesting if people go to your Facebook page and your social channels and share their thoughts on what they thought of the list, or if they had anything that they wanted to share as far as what their favorite episode was.
Yes. Tag, and if you want, tag us at Simply Be Organized. But yeah, comment This Organized Life podcast. This Organized Life podcast is our Facebook group. And again, all over social at Simply Be Organized. So until next week, I'm Laurie Palau. Peace out.